Hello, guys. Thank you for being here. Welcome again to another episode of Latino World Travelers Travel Parties. Yay! Thank you for being here. Today with us, we have Andrea. And Andrea is going to introduce us to the Netherlands and also Lithuania, the two treasures of Europe. So welcome, Andrea. Thank you for being here. And tell us everything we need to know.
Okay, hey guys. So my name is Andrea. I actually live in Houston, Texas. And I'm originally born in Mexico, but my family has a very mixed background. My dad is Italian and my mom is half German, half Mexican. But I only speak Spanish and English. So anyways, I started traveling a lot like 3 years ago in 2016. I guess about to be 4 years. But so last year I went to Lithuania for the first time, and I've been to the Netherlands about 8 times at least. So I always make it one of my absolute stops every time I go to Europe. I spend at least 4 days to a week or more there because it's my favorite country.
Wow. I've never heard of anyone even going to that country or even saying that. So I'm very excited for everything you're going to tell us.
Yeah. So the way I ended up in Lithuania was I was actually, planning my trip around Europe last year was just over 1 month. And so I needed a connection from Norway to Latvia. And I was trying to plan the cheapest route possible. And so I was looking how to get, to that side of Europe from Norway. And it came up I used Rome to Rio, and it came up being really affordable to go from Oslo to Vilnius, Lithuania. And I never really heard of Vilnius, and I was like, oh, let's check it out. So I looked it up, and Vilnius seemed like a nice little place to stop for a few days, and I was able to take a bus from Vilnius to Riga. So I was able to, quickly get from one place to another. And then the reason why I needed to go to Riga was because from Riga, I was going to Tel Aviv, to Israel. So it was very important that all my stops lined up so that I could ultimately get to Tel Aviv. So here I go. I ended up in Vilnius. The airport is very small, but when you go out to the main area, it's really nice. I'm going to share so y'all can see the airport. It's just a small little snap of it because they kind of like you go through it really fast. So this is like the main little lobby area before you exit, and where the screens are, like there's people coming in and out, for flights. So that was the first impression. I was really impressed by the airport. I couldn't believe that was the airport. I'd never seen an airport that looked like that before. So from there, I took a bus into the main city. The bus was $1 or less. I can't remember, but it was very, very cheap. I couldn't believe how cheap it was. And I think it was about like a 30 to 40-minute ride to the center. Now, the buses in the old town, they don't go into the old town. So pretty much in the old town, you're all by foot. So you come in through this gate. This is the main gate you see when you come into the old town. This is actually already, when you walk through that little arch, you're in the old town. And when you walk through there, you start to see this. And this was my first, I arrived like right at sunset, and this was like the first thing I saw, which like I absolutely fell in love with. I couldn't believe how beautiful this little city was. And so let's see. I don't know if this will, if y'all. So this is like the main part of the old town. Everything is super clean. Everything is really beautiful. All the buildings are painted like perfectly. Um, and so yeah, so this is like the main part of the old town. There's a lot of shops and restaurants around here. And then there's these cute little streets all around that lead from that main square, out into the middle of the old town. And so I actually stayed here. It was a hostel. It was a 4-person room. And so this was my bed, and I was the only person in there for one night, and then I got some roommates the following, I think I was there 2 more nights.
Mhm. What
And
was the name of the hostel, or how did you find it?
okay, so I use a couple different apps to find hostels, but this one I believe I found through Hostel World. But then I searched through Hostel World, and then I book direct if they have a website. If they don't have a website, then I'll just book through Hostel World. But I usually use that as like my search engine, and then I'll book direct through them because usually they'll give you better rates um, um, than if were to book it through Hostel World, or it just depends.
Mm-hmm. And you
So
support directly the owners instead of having to pay an extra fee for hostel world.
right, and when you go to the hostels, or in many hotels, you'll see signs that say, "Please book direct through us," because they get that commission direct rather than having to pay search engines and things like that. So this was the room. It's a fairly basic, but I think it was like $10 a night for
Wow,
that.
that is
Yeah.
so cheap.
And it came with breakfast too. It was, a simple breakfast, bread and jam, pancakes and syrup and juice and coffee. But I think better than nothing. And for, $10, you can't beat that. And, it was actually a really nice place. This was the view from those little windows up at the top. So from these windows, this was the sunset the first night that I was there. So yeah, it was really nice. Very quiet. The location is perfect because it's in the old town. So from there you can walk anywhere, and that's one of the reasons why I chose it.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
So when you say walked anywhere, where exactly were you walking to?
So one of the main things I wanted to see was this street, which was literally 1 minute away. Um, I went very early in the morning, and I was able to get this picture. When I walked by in the afternoon, it was like so super crowded with people, and I was glad I got my picture in the morning. But so basically, you just walk through all the little old streets of the old town, and you'll find there was a couple streets that had like lanterns and things like this, little lights. And I found like really nice buildings. One of the main things I do is just like wander around. Like I give myself a day to just walk the streets, and I'll like note things that I've liked. Some things I like save, ahead of time. I research ahead of time, and like I'll look for them as I'm walking around. But yeah, so the streets of the old town are all like this. They're all cobblestone. The sidewalks are very, very small. So like when you're passing people in some places, like you either had to wait, or, if there were no cars coming, step into the street to let people pass. In some places they were really small. But like all the buildings I saw were so perfectly manicured. Like they were all painted so nice, so well taken care of. I couldn't believe it for like such a small little place. It was amazing.
And definitely wear sneakers if
Oh
it's
yeah.
cobblestone because
Yeah. I wear sneakers like always. Only if I know I'm just gonna go quickly to eat or something, I'll change into like sandals but the majority of the time I'm always in sneakers, especially these cobblestones. They tear your feet up. They tear your feet up. Yeah. So let's see. A couple places that I really liked was this place. It's I don't know how to pronounce it. I'm gonna Chaika.
let's assume that we're
um,
still gonna read it in Spanish no matter what it is.
yeah, I have a lot of like names of streets that are really beautiful, but I don't know how to pronounce them. So, if you want to
Why do
know,
you like this place?
okay, so I had seen it I think on Instagram or somewhere. And the place is actually really cute. It's got like a earthy like a mishmash type of place. They repurpose like the table is like an old sign. And so it's just like a really neat like eco-friendly type place. And so they are known for their coffee and their pastries. So that's what I got. That was like a blackberry pie, basically, like almost like a cheesecake, but just blackberry and cream on top. It was really good.
Mm.
So yeah, I was looking for this place and I was just walking and I ended up finding it. So I just went right in. So yeah, and the people that worked there were really nice. I had a little bit of trouble, trying to communicate, but for the most part, people spoke English or understood enough to where I could order.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then just down the street, I found this place. Um, this one was a little bit outside of the main old town, and it's called Coffee in Lab. And this was a great place because all the tables had plugs so you could recharge, and they had air conditioning. So it was a really nice place to sit down, have another
Mm-hmm.
nice cold coffee, and relax.
Yes.
So from here, my main point was to find, it's called, I believe, Gadimia's Tower. And actually, to get there, you walk through what's called, I think, Kalnai Park. It's Kalnai Park. And so you walk through there and you get to the Gadima's Tower. And this is one of the views you get from there. So basically you go up this really rocky hill. So definitely you need sneakers. And at the top of the tower,
Wow.
just before the tower is this view. I didn't feel like going up the actual tower because I was so hot and so tired. It's really hard to go up the hill because it's nothing but rocks. There is the option to take an elevator, but I didn't know that until I was up there. But yeah, you can take an elevator all the way to this point, and then there's still the tower to go up the stairs. So I have a
Mm.
video here. And basically how you see these rocks on the left, that's the whole hill all the way up. So they were like trying to remodel it, I guess, trying to make it, friendlier, more accessible to all, everyone. So they were remodeling while I was there. So I don't know, now it might be better. But this is the top of the tower. And basically you see
Wow.
all of the old town, and then you see the new part of Vilnius, which is on the other side of that river.
Mm-hmm. What caught your attention the most in that city?
In the city, really the architecture. I'm drawn to, this old style of architecture, mainly because we don't have anything like that, in the US, or at least in Texas. I know the East Coast has, a lot more, architecture that more European style bay. Here in Texas, we don't have anything like this. So I'm always drawn to places that have, this old architecture, the European architecture that's so beautiful that, we just don't have here.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. And so like down, and then this is a newer part of the old town, but it's just like all the streets are like this. And like I didn't know what street to go down because they were all so pretty. And this street is like lined with cafes. This is a more like upscale type street because they had a lot of boutique shops and nicer restaurants here on this street. Let me see. I think I have the name of it, but of course, I can't pronounce it.
Brittany is asking, did you see any places that felt like all USSR?
Yes. So outside of the gate, that first gate I showed you, outside of this, when you first arrive, it looks like the war just happened outside of this gate. It's still like really, that's why when I walked through, I was like, oh my God, like it is a whole world of a difference from this part of Vilnius to what was just on the other side of this. Crazy. Yeah, it looks like the war just happened on the other side of this gate. It's insane.
I'm assuming that contrast is shocking.
Oh, yes, because when I first got off the bus, I was like, oh my God. I was like, where am I? And then, like on the phone, the map was like, okay, go through this gate. And I was nervous because the outside of this, I was like, this looks really sketchy.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went through and I was like, oh my God, I feel like I stepped into a different world when I went through this gate. Honestly, like crazy difference. Crazy difference.
You said you were there for how long?
I think I was there, I think it was a total of 3 nights, but I arrived, obviously really late on the first day.
Mm-hmm.
So it was more like 2 full days. Yeah, 2 full days and then I left.
Now, what is the typical food of Lithuania?
That I'm not really sure of, because I couldn't really find little restaurants like that they had anything in English. So I'm not really sure, but I did find a really good restaurant that was, it was actually on my last day. The food is actually really good. Unfortunately, I don't know like typical Lithuanian cuisine, but this was really good. It was like roast duck, and then this is like glazed pears and cranberry. And this is right there in the old town. And it's perfect because they also have this balcony with this view. So I didn't eat any typical Lithuanian food, simply because it was too hard to find a place where I could communicate with someone and have a meal as well, that they could understand me.
Yes. Did you feel that you needed a map to be able to navigate the city, or is small enough that you can just roam around and not need a map to go back home?
Well, I have the map on my phone, but I honestly never use it. I just this Vilnius was really easy to get around. A lot of the streets kind of like loop around, back into this main area. So I never got lost, but at the same time, I did have, like the Apple Maps to help me navigate through. And I usually use this square as my point of reference. So, this main part of the old town. So I knew if I could see, this square from the end of the street that I was going in the right direction. But I never got lost. It was pretty easy to get around without a map, like a paper map.
Cool. Do you guys have any questions about Lithuania? Any questions at all? So as long as you stay in the center, you don't need any mode of transportation. Walking distance to everywhere is fine.
Yeah, I walked everywhere. I walked, from here all the way to the tower, and the tower was, it's a good walk, but it's definitely doable. And I was there in June. So it was hot, but it wasn't like extreme heat. It was like more of a dry, heat, and it was more tolerable than, in other places. So the weather
What is the conversion rate?
that I can't remember. But everything in Vilnius, the most expensive meal I had was at duck. That came out with the coffee and everything. It was like $27. But like the coffee was like $1. Everything was super affordable outside of that one meal, which that meal wasn't that bad, when you compare it to what it was, in the type of restaurant. But there's different places, like I found, it's called Downtown Food Hall. They have, like your typical food hall. They had Asian food, peri-peri chicken, pizza. They had a popcorn lab where you could make your own flavor. And there's a lot of neat places to, I didn't expect to find that, different, food there in Lithuania. I was expecting, I don't know, like typical, Russian style food. And I found like a melting pot of food there. So it was really interesting to find.
Nice,
yeah, everything was really cheap. I bought souvenirs as well, and I spent like no more than $3 on, like magnets and little the Matryoshka dolls, and so it's a really affordable place.
So you said that you had issues with language barrier, and that's why you had to go to the mostly English-speaking areas or restaurants, right?
Yeah, but for the most part, it was okay. I didn't really venture into many places. I'm not huge on museums, so I didn't go in, and I didn't have a lot of time. So I didn't go into many, places like that. So I wouldn't know exactly, the language barriers in places like that, which I'm assuming it's okay because many restaurants did have English menus. That wasn't a problem. But I do have on my excuse me, on my phone, the Google Translate app, which if you download the specific language, you can directly translate text and photos and, someone speaking. So I did use that, for the occasion where I needed it. But, I try not to stay away from it because I know it doesn't translate 100% accurate. Yeah.
So after you went to Lithuania, is that when you went to Netherlands, or was it a different trip?
No, every time I go to Europe, I go to the Netherlands.
Okay.
So I did go to the Netherlands after this trip. The Netherlands was my last stop. I had 14 stops this trip. I was on a mission to reach at least 30 countries before my 30th birthday.
Nice. Did you reach it?
Yeah.
Yay.
Yeah, I'm at the 4 right now. Yeah. So I jammed as many countries as I could. And so that's, my route. The reason why it was the way it was for that purpose, to reach the 30 countries before my 30th birthday.
That's so cool. Very nice.
In country 30 a day before my birthday. It was Malta.
Yeah. We had someone presenting, was it last Saturday, presenting Malta. It was beautiful.
Yeah. I loved Malta too. I definitely go back there as well.
Yes. So tell us about Netherlands. What cities did you go? What did you do? What were the highlights?
Yep. So there's definite things I do every time I go that, I just miss so much when I'm at home that every time I go, I'm like, okay, my checklist of things I have to eat, see, and do, and then I'll go off and do other things. So, like, without a doubt, and I'm sure, like everyone's heard of stroop waffles. You have to have a stroop waffle when you go, but you can't just have any stroopwafel because there's, of course, many places that sell them. There's a stand in the Albert Kite Market that sells them. They make them fresh for you. You order, and like with that, and then you can literally smell them coming down the market. So it's an outdoor market, and the Pipe is the name of the neighborhood. So I'll pull up the picture of the stroop waffle so y'all could see it. So this is a normal sized one, but there's a giant one too, and that one I haven't tried because it's just ungodly. It's so big.
For like how many people would it be?
Probably the huge one. I've seen like one person eat the whole thing. I mean, you could do it, but I can't. So probably like 2 or 3 people could eat the ginormous one. But this is the regular one. I believe it's €1.50 for this one. And of course, like you see the guys in the back over here, they like make it fresh as you order it. They hand it to you hot. It is so, so good. And so that's in the Albert Kite Market, which in my main picture Vanessa posted, that's the Albert Kite Market.
How do you spell that, Albert Kite?
It's Albert, like how it sounds, and then Cuyp. And it's in the Pipe neighborhood of Amsterdam. And so also in Albert Kite, you have to try poffertjes. That's the best way to say it. So they're mini Dutch pancakes, and the typical way is to have them with melted butter and powdered sugar. I don't eat a lot of sweets, so I get it without the powdered sugar. And it's not only that, but it's super windy in Amsterdam, like almost 100% of the time. So the powdered sugar just flies everywhere. So I just get it with the melted butter rather than having it the traditional way. But this stand also sells it with chocolate, with Nutella, with strawberries. They have some with I think it's like a Dutch style of M&Ms. They top it with M&Ms, cream, like all kinds of toppings. But I don't really like sweets, so I get it the traditional way with melted butter. And it's really, really good. And so another thing that you have to get while you're there is the orange juice. I don't know if I have a picture of it, but I don't think I do. But
orange juice? What is so special about it?
I don't know. It's so good. It's so, oh, here it is. It's this specific one was from a grandma that was there just squeezing the oranges, with her little press. And for this cup of juice was €1. And I just had to have it. And it is one of the best juices I've ever had. It's just orange juice, but it is so good. In the Netherlands, fruits and vegetables have a very different flavor. And that's typical for Europe as a whole. Fruits and vegetables taste so different than they do here in Texas. I feel like many times, Texas and the U.S., fruits and vegetables just have they're
Tasteless.
good, but yeah, they don't really have a taste. Many of them, like oranges and stuff, aren't very juicy. So to have this, I was like, and so now every time I go, I get a cup of orange juice from her. And so this is just a small one, but you could buy like a little,
Do you have a picture of her so we can find her when we get
I did, but I couldn't find it. She's so cute. And she's just there like, oh, she's in the back actually. You can see her like blurry, but in the back behind
Okay.
orange juice. Yeah, she's back there with her little press, just, you know,
If you see
making
a
all the
red
oranges.
umbrella,
She's right there.
Los Churros, red umbrella,
Yeah.
she's right there.
Yeah, right there. And she's just going at it. And the market, I think they open it at like 8, but they close it at 5. And 5 is like an absolute 5. You go there at like 4:50 and they've already like closed up half the stuff. They don't play around. And you can find all kinds of stuff in this market. This is where I go for like souvenirs because there's many shops and they're very cheap. Um, and they have all kinds of stuff like there's shops that are basically like a Walgreens, CVS that have all like toiletries and things like that, and there's clothing, there's handmade goods, there's food, all kinds of food, as you could see, and a lot of really good stuff. But the two I recommend the most is the Pofferties and the stroop waffle. Like you have to have that. And from there, from there.
Nice.
Yes.
So how about the nightlife? What can you tell us about that? We always hear stories.
So I'm not big on nightlife, but of course, I've gone out a few times. I went to a drag bar with a friend. That was really interesting, a lot of fun. It was actually during Christmas time, and one of the drag queens gave me a gift. So I was like, that's really interesting. I went to the red light district. That is interesting as well. Not quite what I thought it would be, but
what did you think it was gonna be, and
I
what
don't
was
know.
it?
I don't know. The way people talk about it, the way, the fame it has, I expected it to be a lot raunchier. And, the one take back I have from it was there was one of the girls sitting in the window and she was just talking on her phone. Like, okay, yeah, like if you wanted to see her, you could. She didn't care. She was on her phone. Like, I thought that was interesting. But yeah, there you're not allowed to take any pictures at all. Like, they have cameras all over the red light district. And I have known a couple people that tried, and security came out and like took their phones and like deleted the photos. So yeah, they're very strict. During the day, you can walk through and it looks like any other part of Amsterdam. But at night is when the girls come out and, all the windows are filled with things for you to see. But other than that, there's a lot of good bars in Amsterdam. There's Rembrandtplein is one of the most popular ones. That's where I spent New Year's a couple times. All the bars are there, and you can just go from one to the next. There's
Where is it again? Can you repeat that?
Rembrandtplein. It's in the canal ring, right in the center of Amsterdam. And that's one of the most popular places that I've gone to. But there's bars all over Amsterdam. They're so easy to find. Like, they have all their chairs and tables outside, and they have all the signage for the beers and stuff. So there's no shortage.
Yes.
Of bars there.
What is one place that you highly recommend?
So, for what?
For bars or restaurants for the evening nightlife.
So one place that I always go to, it's called Sky Lounge, and it's at the top of the DoubleTree Hotel by Central Station. You have to get there at just the right time because it fills up crazy fast. And so I do have a photo. So Sky Lounge was introduced to me by a Dutch friend, and the view there is amazing, and the drinks are pretty good. It's a little pricey, but that's pretty typical for the Netherlands. So this is the outdoor lounge area. And this is only open if there's no wind, high wind, or rain, which is very typical for the Netherlands. So this was actually last summer, or actually, sorry, 2 years ago. I went with one of my Dutch friends to have drinks here, and they have really good music. You know, it does get really crowded, but they have snacks that you could buy, good drinks, and this is a view at night. So you see all of Amsterdam from there too. So it's a really nice place. And you just go to the DoubleTree Hotel, and then you go to the elevator, and there's a button for Sky Lounge, and you just hit that, and it takes you straight up there. And so if this is still on the outside patio, but inside you still get the same view. Obviously, there's just glass in front of you.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, it's super nice. And you can go there during the day as well. And they have like coffee service, and it's actually like you get one coffee and then they refill it for you with whatever coffee you want. So you get two for the price of one. Yeah.
Talk about saving money. Hey.
Yeah, right.
For a person who loves coffee.
I love coffee. So one thing I did want to share was I actually got to use one of these on one of my trips. It's called the Amsterdam City Card. So this is a really neat thing. It's a little pricey, but so with this card, you can get on any of the trams or buses, any GVB ran public transportation. With this card, you just swipe in and you go on. You don't pay. So this is really good. It gets you into most, if not all, museums for free with the card. You also get a canal boat ride with this, which I highly recommend. I mean, it sounds really cheesy, but you have to go on a canal tour.
Is there a specific time that you recommend for us to do the canal tour?
See, the weather in the Netherlands is super, super like crazy. So if you see sunshine, go do everything you can outside, because the weather changes in the blink of an eye. Many of these pictures I have here were taken on the same day, and you go through like a whirlwind of emotions with the weather there. Yes. So I've done boat tours in the morning, in the evening, and at night. The ones I've done at night was in the winter for the Amsterdam Light Festival. So it'll take you, depending on the boat you choose. I chose one that included drinks. So it was like unlimited drinks and things while you were on the ride. It ended up being closer to 2 hours, but I think it's only supposed to be 90 minutes. But they take you all around Amsterdam to see the Christmas, light. It's not really Christmas lights. They're like artsy lights.
And how much is that? How much is that pass? Mike is asking.
I believe they changed the price. Well, see, you buy it for how many days you want it. So this particular one was given to me, and it was for, I think it was for 4 days. And I believe it's about, I don't want to be misquoted, but I think it's about 100 euros.
Okay.
It's a bit expensive, but if you're able to do all of the things that you get with the card, I think it's worth it. Especially for the public transport, because now they changed it. So before, where you could just pay when you got on the tram, for the one ride, they don't do that anymore. Now you have to buy a pass for, I believe the shortest one is 3 hours, but it might be a day. I can't remember. But you have to buy a pass. And so now you can no longer just hop on and pay for your one ride. You have to buy like a pass. So this is really good because if you know you're going to be there, 4 days, you can get around really quickly on the trams and buses, with this pass, and you just hold it up to the thing, scan in, scan out, super easy.
Yes.
Yeah. I have a transportation card since I go so often. I have a public transportation card.
Mm-hmm.
So I just refill that and use that rather than buying the passes.
Mm-hmm. And based on the location and where things are located, where do you recommend people stay? What's the neighborhood or the area? If you know a specific hotel.
So I've stayed. Oh, I see someone asked how far is the airport. So it depends. The airport is not far at all, but you could take either a bus or the actual train, like the subway train. But it just depends on where you're staying, what you can take. I've done it where I just take the train to the central station and then from there go wherever I need to go. But I've also stayed in like Museum Plain area where all the museums are. And you could take a bus there and it's €5 to take the bus. And it's about on the bus, it takes longer. It's about 40 minutes. On the train from Schiphol to Central Station, it's like 20 minutes.
Okay.
It depends on what train you get on, but about 1 to 2 stops on the way to Central Station. And from Central Station, you can take, again, a bus or a tram to wherever you need to go. So I've stayed in many different areas of Amsterdam. The one I've stayed at the most is right across the River, and it's a hostel over there. It's called Clink Hostel. Now, it's really expensive in terms of hostels because Amsterdam, the Netherlands in general, is expensive. And so depending on when you book, how you book, I usually have a discount code because I go so often, they send me discount codes. But a typical room for 4 people is like €60 a night. And the room is super small. I don't have any pictures because the room is so small. So I usually either stay in a 4-person or 6-person. 4-person is more expensive. 6-person is just a little more affordable, but they don't have many of the 4-person, so those get booked up really fast.
Yes.
And so if you know you're going to Amsterdam and you want to stay at a hostel, you need to book it right away.
We need to contact you first for the discount and then we book it.
Yeah, I mean, I could share.
Like, hey, hit me. Hook a sister up.
But so the one thing about this hostel that I think deters many people from it is that it's across the river. So many times when you look it up on the map, it gives you some crazy way to get there because it doesn't give you the option to ride the ferry. The ferry, you take it right outside of Central Station. Mm-hmm. It's free. You just hop on. It's literally like less than 10 minutes. It goes across the river and it drops you off outside of another place I highly recommend, the Atom Tower. But it drops you off right there. It's a few minute walk to the hostel and you're there. It's super, super easy. And from the airport, you just take the train to Central Station. You get off the train and you literally walk downstairs to the ferry and you go across to the hostel. Super easy. But I think a lot of people get nervous just because it's across the river and sometimes the maps don't give you that option to take the ferry. And the ferry runs 24 hours a day. It never stops, never ever stops. And they were working on the extension of the underground metro to go over to that side of the river. So if not now, in the future, the metro will go all the way over there. So you don't have to take the ferry. You could just take the metro. Hmm.
That's good. I like that there is different ways of transporting yourself.
Oh yeah, it is so easy to get around Amsterdam and the Netherlands. That's one of the things I love about it so much, that it's so easy. There's trams, there's buses, there's the trains, there's the metro, like there's Uber, there's anything you could think of there. The only thing I haven't done is get on a bike, primarily because I don't know how to ride a bike. But I'm also terrified to ride a bike over there, with all the people who know where they're going and how the routes and things go. So I just stick to the public transportation or walking. I love to walk over there.
Have you been anywhere else besides Amsterdam in the Netherlands?
Yeah. So from Amsterdam, specifically from Central Station, you can take the train. And sometimes I just hop on and go wherever the train is going. But so you can go to Zaandam. That's only like 10 minutes away. And it's a really beautiful area. It's not anywhere to spend an entire day. It's just, they have some really interesting green and blue buildings over there. So worth the time to go see it. And there's shopping there if you like to shop. And then from there, you could go to Zonzeskans, which is where the windmills are. And so you can.
I had a picture like that earlier, but it was too blurry.
Yeah. So I've only been there once, and it was super rainy, gloomy, cloudy. So I need to go back.
Nice.
So
guys.
yeah. So like I said, the weather in the Netherlands is very volatile. So if you ever have a nice day, you need to squeeze in as much as you can to that day. So you could also go to Haarlem, Utrecht. Utrecht is very similar, like in beauty to Amsterdam, but like 80% less tourists. It's not as crowded, but you still get that little charm of the Netherlands. So, all the cute little crooked houses, that typical Dutch architecture, you get all that there, all the cute shops, all the cute streets, but just in a much smaller scale, which is really nice. Actually, I've stayed there with a friend who lives in Utrecht, and I loved it. I love staying there. As much as I love Amsterdam, if I were to ever live in the Netherlands, it would be Utrecht. But on the train, you can also go to The Hague, which leads you to, I can't pronounce it, but it's the beach. It's got a really, really long name. I can type it for y'all. They have a really nice pier there, and all the Dutch people go there when the weather is nice. And this place is also where on New Year's Day, the Dutch go to run into the ocean on January 1st in the freezing cold. And so I got to see them do that 1 year. I would never do that. But yeah, you can take the train to Germany or to Belgium. I don't know about a ferry to Denmark or Hamburg, but you could definitely take the train, or there's like Flixbus to Brussels, anywhere around that side of Belgium that feeds into the Netherlands or Germany. But I've also been to Delft, Rotterdam, Maastricht, and Zandvoort, all on the train in the Netherlands. Super easy too.
Chastity is asking, she read that Amsterdam was closing all of its coffee shops and turning them into cannabis cafes. Do you know if this is true?
That I don't know. So the other place I've been to, Maastricht, they're very strict on their coffee shops, as they refer to them. So like in Maastricht, only residents of Maastricht or the Netherlands can actually go in to the coffee shops. They do not allow anybody else in. And I was there with a friend who goes to the University of Maastricht, and I actually had to wait outside because they don't even let you in, even with a person who lives
But how
there.
do they know you're not from there?
You have to show your like resident, like your ID basically. And so what I heard is that to combat tourism, specifically in Amsterdam, that's something they were thinking of doing, was to close the shops to tourists and make it more like how Maastricht does their coffee shops, where it's only for locals, to enjoy. Because I've read a lot of articles about tourism in Amsterdam, and that was one of their main issues, is the red light district and the coffee shops. And they want to, attract a different type of tourist, is what they said. And so they also raise the tourist tax in Amsterdam. So
How much is it?
I believe it comes out to like €5. It's either 5 or 10 euros extra a night per stay. So each night, like your hotel tax and stuff, that's added on, extra tourist tax. And they're trying to deter budget travelers and, people who just go for the coffee shops and the red light district.
Yes.
Yeah, and they're also talking about closing a lot of the little like the fry shops and all of that are in the center, because that attracts a lot of tourists too. And they throw their trash everywhere, and it's messy.
Yeah.
So they're trying to close a lot of those stuff as well. So we'll see. I don't know. The people who live there would probably know more about that. But that's just what I've read.
Right? So Lisandra said that the coffee shops mess her up. Can you unmute yourself and tell us what do you mean by that?
It wasn't my fault. So I ordered a piece of cake, and the guy gave it to me face down, so the instructions to how to eat the cake was at the bottom. So I ate the whole cake, and then I found a piece of paper, and the piece of paper said, eat just a little piece every 30 minutes until desired effect. And I ate the whole thing.
Oh my God.
So it kicked in maybe like 3 or 4 hours later. My heart was racing. I was sweating. My eyes was like bloodshot red. I was just crying the whole time because I didn't want to feel that high anymore. And I was like, and I was just begging for bread. I was begging for juice. I was like, it was horrible. So read the instructions when you go to a coffee shop. Or look for it or ask for it.
Wait, all this time when you're saying coffee shop, I'm thinking it's a coffee shop.
No.
Me too, and I love coffee. No.
That's why I was like, why they're not going to let me in a coffee shop?
Coffee shop is where they have like little pastries made out of weed. You could smoke weed also.
You can have coffee too, though. But it's
it's infused.
Oh, wow. Como dice, me estoy desayunando. I'm just finding out about this. Oh, wow.
Yeah, so coffee shops in all of the Netherlands is not what we call a coffee shop. Okay. It's gonna be, weed and other goodies for you. Yeah, I had to learn that, a hard way.
The hard way? What?
Yeah, because I'm always saying like, oh, this coffee shop I love, blah, 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 blah. And over there, one of my Dutch friends was like, you have to stop saying that because you're referring to something else. And I had no clue. And so yeah, it's not what we consider a coffee shop at all.
That is the trip that we need to take after quarantine, is to Amsterdam and visit a lot of coffee shops.
But they're not going to let us in.
Maybe well, she said it's only one part. It's not all parts. It's just one part.
No, yeah. Only Maastricht has restricted tourists. Amsterdam.
Definitely not going there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, if you go, be mindful. Yeah, the coffee shop is not a cafe. It's something completely different.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so I
So
mean,
what is the typical food in the Netherlands? I always want to know about food because I'm a foodie and
oh yeah, I
want to
mean, I
try
am
everything.
too. So typical Dutch food is not very good. It's you know, they like to eat herring and a lot of fried food. Yeah, I haven't tried herring because I don't like fish like that. No, thank you. It's basically like pickled raw fish.
Oh.
So no. One
I'll
Dutch.
probably try it because I like to try the weirdest things.
Oh, but
I
it
try
even.
whale, shark,
Yeah, I mean,
camel,
I
ostrich.
I have too, but herring just has a awful smell. I mean, I know people enjoy it, obviously, but for me, no. So they have what's called bitterballen, and it's a fried little ball um, of yummy deliciousness. Let me find the photo of it. And every time I go, I have to get bitterballen, and it's just a fried little snack, but it's a typical Dutch snack. So if you go, you have to try it. I know some people don't really enjoy bitterballen just because some people don't like fried food. Some people do. Some people don't eat meat, but here's a photo of it. So this place is called the Ball and Bar, and this particular one was inside the Food Holland, which is another food hall in Amsterdam. And this has been my favorite place to get bitterballen because they have the original one, which is the one you see in my photo, but they also have different kinds. So they have some filled with cheese, some filled with like truffle, and just different fillings. Sometimes they change them up. And so it's served with this mustard. So if you don't like mustard, you don't have to dip it, obviously. But it's really good. Yeah, it's really good. I have another photo. This was at another place on the outskirts of Amsterdam, and this is again typical bitterballen, which is like, I think it's like beef and then some other, like creamy stuff in there, and it's really good. Yeah, that's one day you definitely have to try. Bitterballen if you eat meat.
Brianna is asking, is there a traditional dress or costume for the Netherlands?
Yeah, I mean, there's it kind of looks almost like the little German, like dirndl type of clothing, but I mean, nobody there wears it now. I think if you go out into like the villages, like the really, really small villages, some of the people who still work in, like agriculture might still wear them. I'm not 100% sure, but nobody in, the Netherlands I've seen wearing clothes like you see in some of the little souvenirs and photos. But yeah, it's all like, normal clothes we wear. Yeah.
Also, can people bring the tulip bulbs home, or is that actually against the law?
So they sell them at the airport. I've never brought one home. What I've heard is that if you buy it at the airport, it's okay. I think you can buy them from the floating flower market as well and bring them back. But exactly like how they handle that at customs, I'm not sure, because I know you're not supposed to bring, like produce and, any type of agriculture, seeds, anything home. So whether or not they confiscate it from you when you get back to the US or wherever you're going, that I don't know. Yeah, but they do sell them there at the airport for you to take if you want. But I've never known if one actually makes all the way home.
And another question from Chastity: do people tip there? Is it a custom or like it's a no-no?
So I'm very still torn. As many times as I've gone, I'm like super torn on the issue. So many places, they don't even have a place for you to leave a tip, or, you know, like on the receipt for you to sign, there's no place for you to tip. But then I've gone to restaurants and with my Dutch friends, and they leave a tip, and they add it on, you know. And I asked one of them, I said, do you tip or do you not tip? Because, you know, on the internet and just in general, like, you know, going to all these different places, it's very mixed on what you do. And they're like, oh no, yes, you tip, you have to tip every time. But I've left a tip in some places and they're like, yeah, why did you leave this, you know? But many times they'll just take it, you know. And like, but I have run into many places that don't even have an option for you to sign and leave a tip. So, you know, I'm still really torn. My whole general idea was that you don't tip, you know, because they make a normal wage, you know. And around Europe, it's not like here in the US where they make like, you know, $2 an hour and survive off their tips. Over there, they actually make, you know, a normal wage, whereas here they don't.
Yes.
But a lot of people do ask for a tip. So I can tell you, I'd say rule of thumb, just leave at least 10% is what I always do. At least, you know, if you feel compelled to leave more, then definitely leave more.
And do you have to pay to use the public restrooms, and are they easily available like around the city?
They're not very easily available. I had a very big situation one time, and it's not like here where, you know, if you're out and about, you can run into like a McDonald's or something and use the restroom. Like, it's not like that over there. Places that would have a restroom, like Central Station, you know, those, yeah, you have to pay. I think it's like 50 cents, 50 euro cents to go into the restroom. But they're very clean. You know, there are no strange toilets or anything like that in the Netherlands.
Right.
Yeah. I've run into some of those, you know, in other countries, but I would say not readily available, you know, when you're out and about. So, you know, at the restaurants and stuff, of course, they have restrooms. That's no problem. But when you're just out walking, you know, yeah, it might be a little difficult to find a restroom. Typically, I'll go in and have a coffee somewhere, or, you know, buy, you know, like a juice or something. So if I have to use the restroom.
Y ella siguió ahí mismo al lado mío, like you said.
Mimi!
No.
So yeah, that I would say would be a little challenging, the restroom ordeal.
Well, good to know if you have a bladder and you can contain yourself.
Yeah, I've actually ended up going all the way like back to the hotel or the hostel to use the restroom, because you know, you just can't walk into any place and use the restroom. So
do you drive while you're over there? Have you driven while over there?
Yeah, no, I've never driven over there. You know, in the Netherlands, the majority of people don't drive. They have bikes. They, you know, bike everywhere. They walk, or there's so much public transportation, they use that. So no, I haven't. I don't think I would, because the streets in Amsterdam in particular are really small, and there's a lot of bikes, there's a lot of people walking, so I would never even try it. But if you're out in the country, maybe it's easier, of course, but no, I haven't tried it.
Do you know if they have any restrictions, like if you come from another place, like if we come from the US over there, do we need a special license to drive over there or to rent cars or anything?
That I
like,
don't.
can we drive with a US license in the Netherlands?
Yeah, I think you should be able to, because I've had friends that, you know, rent cars over there. But to tell you the truth, like, I don't really know the full like restrictions and, you know, stipulations of driving a car, you know, over there. Just, it's not something I've ever considered doing. Just because there's no need at least in the Netherlands. There's no need for it. You know, it's not like in the US where it could be challenging to get around, you know, without a car. So you shouldn't really ever need one unless you want to go to a super remote part of the Netherlands or, you know, any country over there.
Fantastic. Any other questions, guys, or anything that you want to share, Andrea, that you haven't yet? And that you have
So-
very extensive notes.
Yeah, so you'll absolutely have to go to the Atom Tower. So it's a observation deck, and at the top there's a restaurant called Moon. It's very, very expensive, but you know, if you're into like high-end meals, I recommend that one. But also they have a viewing area inside where you could get coffee and a normal meal, you know. And then if you go all the way to the top of the tower, they have Europe's highest swing. So
Lisandra, you love swings. This is for you.
Oh yeah, so I've done it twice. I did it for the first time when they first installed the swing, when I was there for one winter, and highly recommend it. Now there's, I believe, 3 swings. Before there were only 2, and they take your picture and everything now when you get on the swing, and it's really cool. It's called Over the Edge, the swing. So you pay 12 euros to go up. If you book it online, they give you, I think, a €1 discount for booking it online. But Over the Edge, I think you have to buy it there, or there's a package online where you could buy it, you know, like all together. And I recommend that if you're not afraid of heights. You're literally swinging off the side of the building. And yeah, you see like all of Amsterdam Central Station, and it's really nice. Best to go on a sunny day, but I wouldn't leave it to waiting on a sunny day, like because that just might not happen. But it's definitely, I have a annual card, so I go up there at least 3 or 4 times when I'm in Amsterdam. So
is that pass included in the price of the transportation? That's what you're asking, Mike?
Oh no, the Atom Tower is separate from that card. I had that card 2 years ago, so they might, you know, they probably have added new, you know, things you can do with it. But to my knowledge, the Atom Tower is completely separate from it. Next to the tower, there's also This is Holland, and it's like a 5D experience of the Netherlands. So that's really cool too. It's basically like a, you know, an IMAX type video with, you know, sounds and smells and movement, and it's really cool. So, and it teaches you the history of the Netherlands. So that I think it's only like 2 years old, 2 or 3 years old. This is Holland. So that's another neat little thing to do, you know, rather than going to a museum. It's a neat little experience. Yeah.
Nice.
I actually, hold on, I have a picture.
Very, very cool.
Okay, so at the tower, they take your photo like this. And so you choose the background, and you could take a silly photo or, you know, whatever you want, but you choose the pose and the background. And this is just one of the ones I have. I have like 5 or 6 of these. But this was actually a friend I made while I was there. He's actually from Austin, Texas. He was at my hostel with me. So yeah, it's a really neat thing to do. That's why I always choose to go there.
Sounds like a plan.
Yeah.
Did you guys have any questions? Anything you want about to know about Lithuania or Netherlands that you haven't asked yet?
One thing I would definitely say, if you're looking at Lithuania and you're looking at the Netherlands, if you're looking for an affordable place to go, I would go to Lithuania because it is very affordable. You could also go, up all the Baltics, to Latvia and, to all the countries around there. If you go to the Netherlands, it is significantly more expensive. The Netherlands is one of the most expensive places I've gone. So, Mike says best season to go. I've gone in both only the winter and the summer. I definitely prefer the summer. The winter is very drab. It's foggy almost every day. The sun never comes out. It's raining. It's cloudy. It's freezing cold. So if you like that, no, it does snow, but not really. Like it didn't snow this year. So it can snow, but it's not typical, at least for Amsterdam. But I recommend the summer. The summer you have a better chance of good weather. Lithuania, I've only gone obviously in the summer, and it was beautiful. I don't know what their winters are like. I could only imagine that it is cold, very cold. But yeah, I recommend probably the summer or the spring for both. Yeah.
And your flights, since you go there so often, when do you find them cheaper, and what source do you use to get the flights?
So one time I went, I actually had a friend who used AARP. The AARP is for seniors, but anybody can actually sign up for it. So she was the one that let me know about it, because she booked her flight to Europe through AARP discount. And so it's only through British Airways. The discount is only through British Airways. So, depending on where you're going would depend on that. But I looked into it, and I saved like $200 booking through AARP on British Airways. So obviously I had a layover in London, but it was worth it, because my first flight to Europe, I booked it, direct through United. Horrible experience, very expensive. It was $1,200 for a direct flight. And United was just horrible. I would never fly them again for international. So yeah, I usually use Skyscanner. So a lot of people have recommended Google Flights, but it's never worked for me. I typically travel in high season, the summer and the holidays. So for me, I don't know, Google Flights doesn't work, but I use Skyscanner. And the only thing I would caution with Skyscanner is that there are a lot of websites that come up with really cheap flights that are scams. Like you essentially pay and you're paying for nothing. There's no flight, there's no nothing. They just steal the information. So I would just caution it. I always look those websites up and see what people are saying about them. I typically try to book direct through the airline if I can. If not, I'll only book on like Expedia, Travelocity, the more typical ones if they come up affordable. Yes. But I usually use Skyscanner as like my search engine to see flight prices and things like that. And then I go from there. But so more recently, I've paid no more than $500 to go to Europe from Houston.
Wow, that's really good.
Yeah, yeah. They say like the best time to look is at least 3 months out. But I've literally booked flights like 2 months, a month and a half before, and I found killer deals. But that's a huge risk to take. I mean, you almost have to either commit to paying a lot or not going, because it can get really, really, really expensive the longer you wait. I've heard people that have booked the night before and they get, like last minute deals. I would never trust that. because they always overbook flights, so I would never trust to wait till the last second. If that's your comfort zone, then go for it.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Unless you're saying, oh, this specific weekend, I'm just gonna not work. I'm just gonna take a weekend off.
yeah,
And you need to get out of the city, and yeah. But
yeah.
for us
Yeah,
I'm a former teacher and you're a teacher,
yeah,
we have a specific breaks.
yeah,
So
right.
we know a year in advance when your
Yeah.
breaks are. So
Yeah, I always look for my flights as soon as I can, because like there's a window, like a time frame, like more than a year you can't, the flight schedules don't come up. So I start looking like 10 months, 9 months ahead, just to kind of get an idea of prices. And I kid you not, I check every day, every other day. Like, I'm constantly checking and looking and looking and looking and looking. And there's times where I've let deals go and I like shoot myself in the foot, but it's just
now,
a thing of
do
looking.
you erase the cookies? Because that's what I've heard, like either go in invisible mode with your browser,
Yeah.
or erase the cookies so they
Right.
don't track how many times you have checked. And
Uh-huh.
this way the flight doesn't go up.
Yeah, I've heard that too. Yeah, because they track like if you've already looked up a flight and things like that. 50-50. Sometimes I remember to clear the browser, history and all of that. But most time I don't. I just, keep it how it is. But I do check on multiple, like my phone, the laptop, like using different servers per se. And yeah, I found good deals, but I don't think there's a right time. You just always have to just keep checking and looking and kind of know the market, how much flights should cost and if you're really getting a good deal or not.
Yes, and you pay what you're comfortable with. If you see it at 500 and you're like, oh, that's good, then you pay it. But some people, 1,000 is good to them.
Yeah, right. And it depends. So another thing I highly recommend for traveling is, especially for like Europe, you could have your mind set on going to the Netherlands, or you could have your mind set on going to Paris, wherever. You can get to any of these places in Europe super well. Now after the virus, I don't know. But I've always flown to whatever city is cheapest, and I've taken a local flight, on Transavia or EasyJet, Ryanair, to the city I'm actually intending to go to. I've paid as low as $15 for a flight. And, at the most expensive end, like $100 for a one-way flight. So, I would say never be set on like, I'm going to fly direct to Amsterdam. No, you can fly to Germany and take a 30-minute, 1-hour flight from a city in Germany to Amsterdam or London. London is usually really cheap. So fly to London and you could take the train into, the main part of Europe. So always that's what I do on Rome to Rio. I explore the routes and see like what route I can use to my advantage, like being the cheapest way possible.
Yes, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for sharing all of this knowledge with us. I am so thankful that you say yes to being here, Andrea. And now we're ready to go to Netherlands. At least I am. I want to go to that coffee shop. Yes.
Definitely an experience.
Definitely. And as you know, guys, today is the last day that we're going to do daily virtual travel parties. Starting next week, we're going to start doing them once a week. So it's going to be every Thursday. And next Thursday, we have Carlitos. Carlitos is going to talk to us about a glance at Madagascar. Madagascar? How do you say that? Madagascar? Madagascar? How do you say it?
Madagascar, yes.
Madagascar. So his pictures are beautiful, and I am really looking forward to seeing this island, which is off of the continent of Africa. So I cannot wait. And that's going to be next Thursday at 4 Pacific time, 7 p.m. Eastern time. And tomorrow, of course, tomorrow, we're going to have the Wanderlust Mixology event workshop. So we're going to be crafting tequila-based cocktails with the amazing Anthony the Mixologist. So you're going to have a blast with him. He's Venezuelan, and you're going to hear his Spanish and his English is all mixed up. But he's really cool. And I cannot wait until tomorrow. So make sure you sign up. And I will send you the list of the ingredients for you to buy. Okay. Thank you so much, Andrea. And have a beautiful evening, guys. See you tomorrow.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.